Hey, how's it going? My name is Cortland Crane. I am a person who stutters as well as a speech language pathologist. And the topic of this video today is going to be something a little bit more personal, and that's the idea of trauma. So I got inspired to make this video after listening to an incredible podcast that I've been completely addicted to recently called Man Enough. And it's a podcast that kind of focuses on the messages of masculinity and how that plays a role in society and within men. This episode that I was listening to was focusing on how a lot of men have experienced trauma in their lives that have led them to possibly have mental health illnesses and some of those toxic masculinity traits that men may experience. And while I was listening to this episode, I could not help but relate these messages and ideas to stuttering. Not just to men who stutter, but everyone who stutters. So I want to kind of dive into my thoughts on that and sort of explain how I think people who stutter have dealt with trauma in their lives due to their speech. So first and foremost, I personally believe that everyone in this world, or at least the vast majority of people, have dealt with some shape or form of trauma in their lives. And that trauma has manifested or will manifest into thoughts, behaviors, or actions that could either lead to them harming themselves or harming other people around them. So trauma leads us to believe that we are not enough. And with stuttering, trauma leads us to believe that our voice and our speech is not enough. There is a medical model of disability where society tells us that because of our disability, because we stutter, we're not able to do this or that, or we're not able to hold a job that involves a lot of public speaking or high pressure, high risk scenarios that involve talking. The medical model of disability pretty much tells us that we have to be fluent all the time, no matter what. Whereas the social model of disability kind of takes an opposite approach in saying that we, as people who stutter, are not the ones who are broken, but rather the system is broken and society is flawed for thinking that we have to be fluent all the time. And that's, kind of the culture that we live in, is that we may live in this toxic culture where people tell us that we have to be fluent a lot and that our worth is only judged by how fluent we are. The crazy thing is that when we're born into this world as babies, we don't even have awareness that we stutter yet. And we don't even have this idea that our voice is not enough. But it's until we're kind of thrown into society and thrown into this world where pretty much everyone around you is fluent that you start to get those pressures, those societal pressures that tell you that you need to be fluent too. And that's where trauma comes in. That is where we experience traumatic events, such as somebody making fun of us because they're stuttering, someone rushing us to speak, somebody finishing our sentences, someone telling us that just simply we are not worth enough because we stutter. And those experiences are traumatic. Those experiences have a very large impact on how we view ourselves and how we navigate the world as adults. These experiences can really rip into the core of people who stutter and affect their self-esteem and their self-worth and just how confident they are as a human. You know, I know that when I was growing up, I struggled with that a lot. I got made fun of a lot due to my stuttering. I constantly had people rushing me. I constantly had people finishing my sentences. And that led me to think that my stuttering was not enough, that my voice is not worth enough. And, you know, not gonna lie, that resulted in lots of mental health challenges while I was growing up. And some of those mental health challenges have kind of manifested themselves into other parts of my life. And, you know, I still struggle with mental health on a daily basis to some extent. And I mean, I'm truthfully really lucky that I had an incredible speech therapist when I was in high school who kind of allowed me to talk about my experiences and allowed me to see myself for who I am and to really value my worth as I am. You know, and that's why I'm so keen and I'm a huge advocate for people focusing on their mental health, talking to a therapist, talking to friends and family about how stuttering has played this adverse role in our lives. And I think especially for men too, it's a little bit harder because we've been told our whole lives that, you know, going to therapy, talking about our emotions is weak and that we shouldn't show our emotions. We shouldn't talk about this kind of stuff with people. But it is so, so crucial. And I really encourage everybody, and especially men out there, that if you struggle with mental health, if you just need someone to talk to, please find a therapist, or please find someone who you trust who you can talk to about this kind of stuff. I just think it's incredibly important to focus on our mental health. So the point of all this is that people who stutter experience trauma just as anyone else experiences trauma. It's just that we experience it in our own unique way. And the same goes for, you know, anyone else and whatever their trauma may be. Trauma is not universal, and our individual life experiences shape who we are and the way that we think about life. This video is not meant to be a sob story of how people who stutter have trauma, but rather to have a conversation about what trauma means to people who stutter and how they have experienced it. And a lot of this is just realizing that we have trauma, and that really helps us to understand why we may think or act the way that we do. So if you like this video and if you have any thoughts to share on trauma and stuttering, please leave a comment, or you can also reach out to me on social media, because I am very passionate about this topic and I like talking about it. I think it's important just to have the conversation about it. Thank you very much for watching, and hope you have a fantastic day.